Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for the Q&A of The Promise. I'm here with Carlos Plummer. He's the director and producer of the movie. So I'm really excited to just kind of dive into kind of his inspiration behind making it and all of that. I do want to remind everyone to remember to rate the movies after you watch them. It's going to help us determine our audience award at the end of the festival. So make sure to do that after all the movies that you watch. And then I also just want to start off by thanking our major sponsors, as well as the sponsors for this film, Jeannie and Robert Griffin, and Films for Good through Bob and Christine Williams. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So I have Carlos here with me today. Carlos, do you want to just kind of introduce yourself and maybe talk about why you wanted to make this film and just kind of your inspiration behind it?
Sure, yeah. So my name is Carlos Plummer. I'm a filmmaker based in Cambria, California. I've kind of grown up with the SLO Film Fest with me and my family, always a part of it in some way or another. And San Luis Obispo, even though I've never lived there, is basically been my second home. The amount of time I spend there is probably more than I spend in my own hometown, and it's very near and dear to me. So when COVID-19 hit and we saw the repercussions, I mean, I was basically yanked back from college. My semester ended early and I finished it from home, and I basically got to see firsthand the effects of what COVID had on the businesses. And growing up in such a unique area where our local business thrives, it was really kind of hard to see. So as part of a separate, little challenge with other filmmakers to make some kind of film that, for good, that basically promotes change or even just shows how people are living during this time, I decided to focus on the local businesses, but not necessarily in a documentary type way, in a more experimental type to maybe show progress moving forward and maybe inspire some kind of hope, which, I hope had some kind of effect, at least from the time it was made. So yeah.
Totally. Do you want to maybe just talk about kind of where we were at with COVID whenever you were making this? Like, how far into it were we? How much did we know? Like, was it still when we kind of thought that everything was like, oh, we'll be done in, a month and back to it? Or was it kind of in that period where we were like still very much like, okay, this is going on for a while?
So at this point, the film was made in July of 2020, but I was brought back home in March, like early March. In fact, I came home the week before spring break, and it was funny because I remember we were planning my spring break trip to go to the Slow Film Festival.
Oh,
And I remember I was in my room, I was making, booking the flights, and we were getting everything figured out. And then my roommate, he came out and he was like, listen, man, I heard they're shutting the school down. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, that'll never happen. They're not going to do that. Sure enough, the next week, school's shutting down. And I'm like, no, I got to go back. So my spring break turned into, 4 months. But when I came home, it was at that period where, yeah, people thought it would be a couple weeks, would be fine. But by the time April rolled around, people were like, okay, no, maybe this is here to stay. And that's when I started noticing people were struggling. And when we made the film, I planned making it in June. So at this point, we knew that lockdown was in place and that things we could be reopening soon, through a small rollout, but it would be very slow, and people would have to wear masks, social distance, and um, I knew that this film, the theme about it was reopening and basically showing that, we can reopen with, just certain restrictions in place, and that, look at the extent that these business owners are going to basically keep their places afloat. Because I remember we worked with 4 businesses in total. I reached out to about, I don't know, 18, and we were going to work with an additional business, but sure enough, they had to close before we even rolled a single frame of film. So it was pretty tight that way.
yeah. Geez, I know it's crazy thinking back to it. And I mean, it's amazing how many businesses were able to stay afloat kind of through all of this, just with like local support and everything, but also devastating, obviously, that there were so many that, did have to shut down and everything. But do you want to maybe just talk about the couple of businesses that were mentioned in in the movie, and just kind of your relationship with them and how all of that came about.
Yeah, for sure. So I decided to choose two businesses from San Luis Obispo and two businesses from Cambria. Just considering that, I grew up in Cambria. It's near and dear to me, but also San Luis Obispo as well. And there's pretty interesting businesses everywhere. We're Central Coast is known for its character, and so the one that I really wanted to hit was the Ritual in San Luis Obispo. Sammy Mejia and Brittany Brown, they run a very tight ship there. That it's a barbershop and a gentleman's store. It's pretty cool. It's a really nice little area. I don't know where my water bottle is right now, but I got a sticker to represent. But I've seen their place for a while now, and I've never gone in. In fact, when I was younger, I was always like afraid to go in, like, oh no, I'm not old enough to go in there. And but I decided to send them an email because I saw that this was around the time when they were toying with the idea of having them cut hair outside or close the store.
Right.
Obviously, that didn't go through until August when they were cutting hair outside, but I decided to hit them up nonetheless, and they were more than interested. They were so in, and they really wanted to help me out. And the footage I got in that place was actually some of my favorite in the film. And Sammy is just such a really cool character, as far as not only being an amazing barber and amazing hairstylist, he just has a lot of heart and he has a lot of connection to the area. And he's very, very, committed to keeping his place open. A couple of the other places we did were Ball and Skyn in Cambria, which is run by Oz and Chris Barron. Great place, nice, cute little yarn and knitting shop. It's definitive of how Cambria is, that you can have such a small mom and pop shop that's just flourishing because there's something for everyone. The Love Story Project in Cambria, run by Alan Fraser. I met Alan. We've known Alan for a while as a family, but I knew him specifically through the Cambria Film Festival, and kind of working there, and seeing him in his photography business, but also in his running of this store, which is all about love, the entire thing, whether it be platonic with friends or romantic with your partner. It's basically about loving yourself and loving others. And you walk in, there's just an insane amount of hearts everywhere,
Oh.
and just amazing little trinkets, and also a really cool hat press that he can make basically his own hats in the back of the store, and it's actually really cool. And the last place we did was the Hands Gallery in San Luis Obispo. It's a pretty famous place in San Luis. It's actually on the same street as the Ritual, just a couple doors down. Sarah Vascov runs that place, and she was a little hesitant at first of what we were doing, but once she saw, what the goal was of this project, she was all in. And that place is beautiful. Some of the most beautiful art pieces I've seen in the area. Um, I remember going in there one time for a Christmas ornament that was the Fremont Theater, and it was hand painted, and it was gorgeous. So there's some pretty awesome pieces there, but each business, in my opinion, has a different characteristic of what makes the Central Coast special.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious what drew you to wanting to kind of tell the story through a runner going through, the towns, and just kind of why you chose that to be kind of the driving force in all of that.
So I think I remember the original idea was to cover businesses, and I was toying with the idea of doing something documentary style, but I'm like, I feel like that either has been done before or will be done. I need to do something that is outside the box, but also easy to understand. And I felt the idea, like a motif or metaphor, is always something that people can latch onto, like putting a main character into something that isn't necessarily fictional. And the runner came about. I my original idea was someone driving through the town or riding a bike, and I thought, well, maybe running will be easier to film. Um, and yeah, so I figured the runner would be someone that symbolizes moving forward, because in each frame that you see him in, he's moving, and until the middle of the film, when he stops and decides to get up and keep going, which I tried to incorporate each step of his run as far as a step of our progress through this time. And the runner was played by Conrad Wright. He's someone we worked with before. We haven't worked with him in a while, but I figured he had the nice, tall, slender, athletic build. It was pretty fun to work with him again, and he just made it really easy to pull what I needed out of him and just evoke that kind of small bits of emotion, particularly in the eyes that I needed.
Yeah.
He had his mask on, so and we also wanted to symbolize the um, taking off of the mask, as far as like we'll get there.
Right.
We're gonna get there. We don't know when, but we're gonna get there, and everything's gonna be okay. So
Yeah. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to
exactly,
believe it.
and
Um,
is very exposed.
yeah. So obviously, like what you just talked about, a big theme in the movie is forward progress and making changes and all of that. And I'm just curious, as a filmmaker, how has COVID kind of affected filmmaking? Or I know you're in school right now. How has it kind of affected all of that? And how are you moving forward with it?
So it's actually been really interesting how it's affected, I think, kind of the artistic side of things. Like I haven't gotten COVID personally. I've kept myself safe, but I know people who have gotten it, particularly my age, who, they end up being fine afterwards, but they're like, man, this really sucks. Like, just wear your mask, do whatever you have to. And it's a real like roadblock, I think, both mentally and physically, because as far as creation goes, like this wasn't too hard to execute with COVID. I think, working with masks and working with people who, they don't want to be in a close proximity with you, or say, I think it's always just kind of that much harder.
Yeah.
It does inspire a lot of creation, as far as staying in, whether it be writing or editing or learning new things. I know in the editing of this, I learned newer tricks as far as transitions and graphics go, and it was just something I wanted to challenge myself and learn. Instead of relying on something that looks good but is easy to do, I'm like, well, I have the time, so I might as well teach myself how to do this.
Yeah.
And my brother made a similar film about COVID, and it was focusing specifically on artists. So he chose some select artists in the Central Coast, and he put that together. But between watching him make that and make Sarah, I saw how COVID was basically almost helping him, because it was giving him the time and focus he needed. Then again, as far as other facets of the artistic process go, particularly with filmmaking, it is a bit of a challenge, especially when it comes to film festivals or events or screenings. Because we want to get people out there to watch our movie, especially in a theater. That would be really nice, but unfortunately, we just can't do that. I think we've been fortunate enough to get a little source of inspiration from it.
On that note, do you have any other projects that you're working on or excited about? Or I know you guys started a podcast. Do you want to talk at all about that, or how can people find you? Just any wrap up thoughts on it all?
Yeah, so basically here, Super Image is really taking off. I'm really excited that, especially this summer, Kyle and I are going to be doing a lot to get off the ground and basically start working on things. We're doing our first producing gig right now, where it's a student film here at DSU, and it's a short called Gizmo. And it's an entire short film that takes place from the perspective of a cat. And you basically get to watch a marriage unravel in front of your eyes, but you're living as the cat. So it should be interesting. We're working on that right now, and it's interesting being in more of the producer seat, kind of facilitating things, and not necessarily being the full creative force. But we're doing that, and we're just going to be doing a lot of work this summer to get everything set in stone, get the company going, and we do have a couple projects in the pipe. Working on a script right now that's kind of an adaptation, but kind of keeping that under wraps. So it's exciting stuff. We're just always looking forward, not letting anything bring us down, and we're just hoping for the best, that we can keep working and keep collaborating with people. And yeah, as a student here, I'm just trying to finish my semester strong despite everything, and just get back as soon as I can.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, and thank you again to our sponsors, our major sponsors, BHE Renewables, American General Media, and KSBY TV, as well as the sponsors of this movie, Jeannie and Robert Griffin, and Films for Good through Bob Williams. So thank you, Carlos, and thank you to our sponsors, and have a great day.